Hey everybody, Elmise. Welcome back to the I Believe podcast. Whether you're listening on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, which if you are, thanks for subscribing, hitting like, and sharing this video. And if you're on any of our podcasting platforms like Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, any of those, thanks again for listening. Make sure to continue tuning in and subscribe. Today I'm joined with Molly Vocino, and I actually know her personally. I've known her pretty much since the first start of my 2021 of my cancer journey with ocular melanoma. And she's one of the oncology social workers at Sidney Kimmel Comprehensive Cancer Center at Jefferson Health. So if you've gone to see Dr. Sato, or if you've gone to see Dr. Orloff or any of the members of their team, you probably have heard of Molly. She's wonderful, and she's got a fantastic team. And she's actually someone who we wanted to have on to talk a little about how we as patients can find people like Molly, right? Because Molly's at Jefferson, and we love that she's at Jefferson, but we also need more Mollys everywhere around the world. So how do we find another Molly? So I guess Molly, to start off, who are the types of professionals that patients should be looking for and connecting with at other medical centers to locate financial aid or just other levels of patient assistance and advocacy?
Yeah, for sure. And thanks so much for having me. And it's so nice to talk to you again. And there are so many. It can be a little confusing because different healthcare institutions may have a different setup for their care team. There may be a dedicated social worker, there may not be. There may be a patient navigator, they may not be. And those professionals might hold different roles. At Jefferson, we also have separate financial advocates, whereas at other cancer centers, the social workers take on a lot of the responsibilities and roles that our financial advocates have. So, to know a little bit of a breakdown of what types of professionals exist on these oncology care teams, it definitely helps give you a starting point to figure out how to get connected for practical resources, for mental health resources, for social resources, and kind of helping to figure out how do you continue to live life well when all of this other stuff is going on with your cancer diagnosis. So certainly social workers are awesome and amazing at wearing so many different hats and helping you address real barriers that are making it difficult to access the care that you need or to get through the treatments that you've begun. And so social workers are really skilled at understanding both what kind of practical local or national resources might exist. And if we're talking about financial assistance, a lot of times there are really sort of regionally specific charities and other groups that have grants or assistance programs or resources that can help in many times with some of the non-medical bills and expenses that come up when you're living with cancer, helping with things like rent, mortgage, utilities, transportation costs, all the kind of life stuff that comes along with having a cancer diagnosis and still sort of handling everyday life. But a lot of times those are sort of really geographically specific or really diagnosis specific. And so, they may not translate to other parts of the country or other types of diagnoses. So having a contact like a social worker who's really clued in and keyed in with the local resources, as well as some of the national resources like like Cure Insight, like all of these other groups that are here to exist for supporting folks with ocular melanoma can be really helpful so you can think a little bit outside of the box. In addition, there may be patient navigators, I mentioned, which are, at least in our institution, professionals that are responsible for welcoming new patients into a medical practice, making sure their records are getting squared away, making sure they have a way to get to their first appointment, making sure that they, are understanding what to expect from their visit. And those navigators may follow them throughout their care, or they may be limited just to that sort of introductory kind of welcoming into the practice. So they're often really helpful if there are immediate financial concerns, either to connect them with resources directly or to say, let me consult our social worker to get you connected with what you need. So there's sometimes this really first line of defense. And so they're a great resource to ask those questions too. When we're thinking about, cancer has so many hidden costs, the things we might sort of naturally, think about at first are, things like copays, medication, costs and sort of healthcare specific costs. And when those are concerns, when there are medical bills, when there are copays, when there are things like that that are really making it difficult to, to receive the care that you need, asking to be connected with a financial advocate at an institution and or connecting directly with a billing department. If you receive a medical bill that either is more than what you can afford, is really daunting, or just plain seems wrong or like it's a mistake, it may be. And so asking to speak with the billing department, asking if there are any financial assistance programs available. Often institutions, Jefferson is included in this, have programs within their billing department specifically to get people the financial assistance that they need, specifically adding on a discount to any kind of balance on their medical bills. But those hidden costs, those things like transportation, like grocery costs, things that you might not automatically associate with a cancer diagnosis, things like utility bills being higher, certainly for the OM community, often, with having a rare diagnosis, you are traveling or having to consider traveling to reach specialists that are, going to be able to guide you in the right direction for the specific diagnosis that you have. And so not only just the transportation, whether it's flight, train, car, bus, lodging, staying overnight close by, getting takeout, food, and other things while you're away from home, not to mention the income you might be missing by not being at home and at your work. So that's why, being aware of the fact that all of these other expenses exist and are somewhat hidden or not as expected, knowing that there are resources, grants and other programs that help to offset that. The social worker is also really well positioned to help you understand what institutional resources might exist directly through your doctor's office. So separate from the billing department of the hospital, but, especially, at a larger institution like Jefferson, we are really fortunate to have in-house funds to help people, who are meeting a certain criteria with some of these things. If you don't ask, you won't know. And beyond that, I think just the other major professional to think about asking, if you're enrolled in a clinical trial, talk to the clinical trial coordinator. Often the trial sponsors are offering reimbursement for travel, lodging, for other expenses, and you might not know unless you ask. So I think that's kind of like the big overview. Your institution where you receive care may have all of these professionals. They may have only one of those professionals or some combination in between. And if you don't know if any of those people exist at your institution, ask whoever you have access to. Ask your nurse, ask the doctor, ask the person who schedules your appointment. And often they're going to sort of activate this phone tree to get you connected to who exists that can help.
Oh my goodness, so many good things in there as far as who to talk to. And I love that you just said, if you don't ask, you won't know. And I feel like that's something that I've had to learn as a patient, right? I've had to learn how to ask for help and to be not just how to ask for help, but just to learn to accept that it's okay to ask for help. I think that so many of us grow up in an environment where, independence and figuring it out yourself is kind of flaunted as like, this is the way, right? And ultimately when you're dealing with a cancer diagnosis, your survival, your medical needs, like all of those kinds of things come to the forefront. And like you said, those hidden needs, they kind of fall to the back burner.
And asking for help often holds a lot of meaning for people.
Yeah.
And
it's vulnerable, for sure.
It's vulnerable, and it's scary, and or causes these feelings of guilt or shame. And especially if you've had the privilege of really being in control of your life and your finances, and being organized and at the top of your game for your life, something like this hits you, and we don't expect that anyone handles this super gracefully, and yet it happens to you, and you're suddenly like, I don't feel comfortable asking for help. I'm just gonna figure it out on my own.
Absolutely. I mean, and it's such a vulnerable thing, and I think that a lot of us too, sometimes if you're in a position where you think, oh well, I should be well enough off to like figure it out and to not need a little extra help. But the reality is, like, I mean, if you're someone like me, I was 28 when I was diagnosed. I'm now 30, what am I, 34? I'm 34, but I have a young family, and the continuous, like, drain of traveling for treatment, of, kind of seeking alternative care, just generally of having cancer to begin with, like on our health insurance expenses, like all of those things add up over time. And I have had it for 5+ years. And it just, like, as far as I know, there's no end in sight. Like, there's
Yeah,
no
life
end in
doesn't
sight.
just
Like,
stop, and those electric bills don't stop coming.
absolutely. And like, I have a growing teenager. Like, he doesn't just like eat less. Like, he's just eating the house and the home, like all of it. I'm like, dude, you just ate the entire Costco bill in like 2 weeks or less. But like those kinds of normal expenses, the weight of them, the weight of carrying those, I think it's so much greater, and you don't really feel it until suddenly you're feeling it. And I mean, I think in the state of the economy that we've dealt with over the last few years, I mean, it's completely understandable. I think that any of us at any phase would need some level of assistance. Why do you feel like patients having this kind of assistance for, traveling for treatment or financial aid, other levels of social network or social support that could be offered at their facility, why do you feel like that's so important and vital to a patient's journey with a rare cancer?
Aura Biosciences is a clinical stage biotechnology company focused on developing precision therapies for solid tumors that aim to preserve organ function. Our lead candidate, Belsar, is currently in late-stage development for primary choroidal melanoma and in early-stage development in other ocular oncology indications and bladder cancer. Our mission is to grow as an innovative global oncology company that positively transforms the lives of patients. For more information, please visit us at aurabiosciences.com.
Certainly with a rare cancer, it just opens the door to accessing the highest quality care. For folks that are diagnosed sort of outside of the just sort of the realm of professionals that see this all the time, which are few and far between, maybe the doctor who diagnosed this or who first notice an anomaly in your eye may not have ever seen a case of this before. And so being able to remove barriers to allow you to freely seek care with folks that studied this, it's their whole career to find solutions and help keep you healthy and well through this diagnosis. It makes such a huge difference rather than, regional cancer centers are limited, unfortunately, right, in sort of the types of diagnoses that they treat, and focusing more on those more common cancer diagnoses, which are totally different than ocular melanoma. And so being able to remove some barriers to help you seek the highest quality care is not only, of course, going to help you hopefully survive and thrive much better, but also is going to help you feel more confident and comfortable with the care that you're pursuing. And that goes a long way in, maintaining, your sense of self through all of this and your confidence that you're doing whatever you can. And helps you focus other personal resources on these other aspects of life that exactly that you're talking about, so that you don't have to pick and choose. Do we shop for groceries this month, or do I see my doctor this month? And unfortunately, there are a lot of people who have to make really tough decisions like that when thinking about what sort of everyday medical care they pursue. It's a decision between affording medications or affording utilities for the month. And being able to seek out and utilize these resources that exist for this purpose, you don't have to be in a really critical, destitute financial place in order to benefit from it. So I think that's the other big message for folks that might feel reluctant about asking for help if they're feeling like, well, someone else might be worse off than me, like we can get by. It's still worth having a conversation, right? Because I think the goal is never for you to be pushing so hard that you end up in this place of not being able to do or afford anything, and knowing where that line is can be tricky. And so opening up the conversation, and maybe it's not utilizing these resources on day one, but knowing what exists so that when you get closer to the line of, okay, I think this would be really helpful, you know exactly who to call.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Because you're right, there may be points in our journey where we're okay, right? We don't have to travel. Maybe we're just diagnosed, we've been treated, and now we're kind of in that scanning maintenance phase. Knowing kind of what's in your back pocket, I think is really important. And I love that you said that. I know, like, at least in my case, like when I traveled to the East Coast to go and see the Jefferson team for a clinical trial that was happening there for adjuvant patients, I know, like, connecting with you was something that they were really, really, like the medical team, the clinical trial team was really, really forward thinking, I think, in like sending me to you as a social worker, like really, really early on. And I wish that more oncology centers did that, like that it was kind of like the go-to, oh, you met with your doctor, you're on a clinical trial, or you're in active treatment. Like the next step is, here's the social worker, or here's the right group of people. Like it would be lovely if they would just automatically kind of go down the line and connect you to the right people.
Totally. And I will say,
perfect, like a perfect world.
So glad that that was the case for you. And even at Jefferson, we're not perfect with that. I'm one person, and there are a lot of patients that I don't get to meet that don't come across my desk. And so, if you're listening and you feel like it would benefit you to have a conversation with me or someone like me, ask your care team. Ask your care team, because they may not have picked up on a reason that they felt was worthy enough to refer you to me or someone like me. Sometimes I'm getting a referral because somebody is upset and emotional, and that conversation leads us towards those practical resources. And maybe the care team had no idea that was something that they're struggling with.
Well, and like, I mean, I'm sure doctors see this all the time. I know that there's some people, and I'm just kind of making a conjecture here, but I think there's some people who go into a doctor's visit and they're like, tell me what to do. I just want to be told what I need to do next, what you're going to do for me, and I just want to be told the plan. Then you have people like me who like to have our own plans, and we like to have a lot of control. And I tend to present as someone, even in like an office visit where I have devastating news to deal with, or difficult, scan news, things like that. I tend to present as someone who knows, like, I've got things under control. I look and I behave, I perform, I guess, in a way that says I'm fine. It's very rare that my care team catches me and sees me in that kind of like emotionally vulnerable state. But when they do, they're like, excuse me, what's wrong? But because I had like happened to connect with the oncology social working team, in my experience going to Jefferson, like I knew, like going to the hospital that I go to here in Phoenix, I knew that I could ask for that. And then I also knew when I traveled for other care at other places, I knew that existed and that I should ask for that elsewhere for other reasons. And so like, it's just unlocked the door for me as a kind of, because I'm a rarer demographic, right? I'm a younger patient in the OM community. And younger patients make up less of the numbers, right? And so those rare demographics, I think sometimes we can kind of walk ourselves into a corner of thinking there's nothing out there specifically for us. I have a rare cancer. I'm like less than 2% of the people with the rare cancer. Like nobody's going to have anything that can specifically help me. So I may as well just kind of like we almost kind of train ourselves to not even look for the opportunities that are out there. But I think that it's so critical that we ask because if we don't, like you will never find kind of the unique opportunities that might exist just for your specific age group or like whoever you are as a person. Like there's just so many unique things that are out there.
Castle Biosciences is a proud sponsor of this I Believe podcast. Castle's innovative uveal melanoma tests provide valuable information about the risk of your eye cancer spreading to help you and your healthcare team individualize the management of your disease. To learn more, visit castlebiosciences.com.
For sure. And it's as much about, your physical health and getting through, physically taking care of yourself through this diagnosis as it is your mental health and that mental landscape and feeling like you can take it on, and so much of the practical reflects the emotional and the social and the mental aspect of this too. And so, yeah, we're here to help with all of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So like, as far as, I guess we can just speak specifically to like the Jefferson and kind of the regional area that you have. But are you aware of kind of like right now, some of the unique ways that patients can find and connect with financial aid? And maybe even a better question would be like, what are some of the questions to ask to find those unique avenues of help?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, in today's world, they're, utilizing search engines and knowing kind of how to interact with the information that you see online. And, for some people, if they're Googling and they're finding access to, things that sound like financial assistance or charitable assistance or grants, sometimes there's still that barrier of not being able to access it on their own, or it's not something that's available to them in that geographic geographic area or they don't meet some other criteria. So, if there's information that you find online that you're wondering, is this something that I'm eligible for, even being able to, cross-reference that with your care team and, utilizing what exists in your social circle. If you are part of some kind of messaging group or social network or social group that may have experienced or have loved ones that experienced a cancer diagnosis, tap them, ask them what was helpful to you during this time. This is something that I'm struggling with. Is there something that you can recommend or something that that exists that I don't? Ask your friends that work in healthcare, right? Ask people that are, sort of in this world and in the know. And, again, that's something that can be, overwhelming to people to kind of be vulnerable with the people in their network. What I have found, for patients, who feel uncomfortable sort of tapping their own personal network for even information, let alone financial or practical support, is that the people that know and love you, they also want to feel like they, can fulfill a need in some way. And for folks that say, not everyone, but for folks that say, please let me know if there's anything I can do, something that can feel easy for some people to do is either to share information or to donate what they can to a cause. And so if you're someone that has been thinking about whether, they might want to start a GoFundMe page or they might want to set up some other kind of networking page. There's one called Give in Kind. There are meal trains. There are Caring Bridge pages. These are all resources that help you tap and connect into, the local support that you have in your own friends and family and coworker and extended network. And of course, there's undeniably a vulnerability there in sharing a need for help and sharing potentially details, a little bit of detail with the people around you about what's going on with you. But for that inner circle that and maybe that second out, that inner outer circle of folks that maybe are acquaintances who you wouldn't feel uncomfortable knowing you have a cancer diagnosis, but who may not be involved in your day to day, being able to extend an easy way for them to, sign up to come over and walk your dog while you're out of town, or to, get you a $20 gift card to DoorDash or Uber Eats so that when you're out, you can, have a nice meal to eat, or something else practical, helping pick up your groceries or drive your son to soccer practice, or, whether there are things that you can ask your people to sign up and do, or to have an easy way to sort of share some of those medical updates in a controlled way so that it's helping you sort of field some of those calls and texts in a way that's manageable. So I think, being the importance, right, of sort of finding that right line between what's not comfortable to share with a certain demographic of people versus what little bit of vulnerability might help you gain access to information and support and resources. That balance is going to look different for everybody, but being sort of open-minded about what the people around you might be able to do to help.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's so important that you highlight the idea that, a lot of times when you receive a cancer diagnosis, so many people say, let me know what I can do to help. And I think that especially when you have a large community, whether it's online or just like a church community or local community, and when you have so many people saying that to you as the cancer patient, it can feel really overwhelming. And the idea of kind of coming up with what can I tell them that I need help with can feel really challenging. And so some of these resources that Molly shared, the different websites like meal trains, things like that, these give assignments in a way that people can just sign up and you can say, oh, you really want to help? Well, please help in this way, or please help in that way. And this is also something that you as the cancer patient don't have to be the one who takes on. Like, for those of you guys listening, if you are a caregiver, this is something you could help with, or that you could ask one of your friends to help with in creating a meal train for the family, especially for times when they're in active treatment. I think that's kind of one of the things that's been challenging for me to figure out this last little while doing Hepzato treatment is there's kind of periods of time that I need way more help. And then other times that I'm fine. I'm more independent again. And I think as cancer patients, we kind of grasp onto that independence sometimes because we need it. We need that control in a certain and uncertain diagnosis. But having simple ways and simple resources to rely on to kind of help you build the framework of how other people can help, I think it can take some of that overwhelm away a lot, for sure.
Yeah. And there's so much that's unknown and uncertain, and that is a perfect recipe for feeling totally out of control. Cancer is like the ultimate representation of loss of control. And so that's uncomfortable and scary and daunting. So, thinking about what you can exert some control over and how you can sort of seek out information and support, sort of helps to chip away at that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, and many heads are better than one. I always say, I need more eyes, right? I only have one. I need more eyes. I need more eyes on things. Please help me out. But many heads are better than one. And you might, I just feel like I can't even count how many times in the last 5 years that I have just put it out there to the rest of the world, to the universe, to social media, to a group of friends on a text thread, and just said, look, I'm looking for this. Do you guys know anybody who might have a connection to something like this? And that, kind of serendipitously almost, it feels like things just kind of fall in my lap. And I say that with a lot of humility, but I also think that it really does show, when you take the effort and the initiative to kind of put yourself out there and to expect that there is something, some way, some person, some community, some group that is out there that wants to help someone like you in any way, shape, or form. Could be financial or otherwise. They do exist, and that help can find you, if you kind of tap into the right connections, and you never know which connection that's going to be.
And if you don't know what you need, but you just know that things have been difficult, then that's where someone like me comes into play. Somebody on the care team who can take space to listen to what has been challenging for you, and then think about if there are any solutions that exist.
Awesome. Well, Molly, thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing your insights to this kind of unique area of aid that patients can tap into, and for giving us just kind of the rundown on the definition of the types of people that would be helpful for patients to connect with at different care centers, and for doing all the work that you do at the Jefferson Health, the Sidney Kimmel Cancer Center. We appreciate you, and we look forward to having you guys back next time.
Thanks so much.